And I want to start by showing you a series of maps. I wish I had a large projector, but I think you're going to be able to see well enough to get the idea. They are color illustrations. So the first is modern-day Israel, which is the orange colored. We have Egypt is over here. This is what's called the Sinai Peninsula. I'll show you another map in a minute. But here's Israel, here's Gaza, here's the West Bank, and you can see Lebanon, Syria, Jordan. This is modern day. Note the Jerusalem here is approximately midway of the country. And you can see that this area comes down to a point. And I'm bringing that to your attention for these other two maps. This first one, or this next one I should say, are the wanderings of Abraham. Here's Abraham. I don't know if that's what he looked like. That's this artist's illustration. You see, and I don't know, I might have to come back there, but I've outlined modern-day Israel at that point there. I can go to the back. Can you all see it from here? All right. You see that's modern-day Israel in the time of where it was positioned back in the time as it was called Canaan back then. And Abraham starts over here in what's now modern-day Iraq. It was a city called Ur where he was born. So that's southern Iraq. And then he makes his way out of there and comes up into what is modern-day Turkey along his journeys here. And it's a city called Haran. Also very close to that area. Anybody know what other biblical event happened having to do with a mountain in current Turkey? The mountain is Ararat. You can still find it. Bob? Exactly right. Noah's Ark was pitched on top of that mountain. That's up here. Of course, that was long before Abraham. So Abraham then continues, and he comes into Canaan, and eventually there's going to be a famine. He's going to go with his wife Sarah into Egypt, and then come back into Canaan. So this gives you an idea of more or less Abraham's journeys. And when I speak of this, I do it with the context that Christians, Jews, and Muslims all look to Abraham as their father. Wherever Abraham went, this is all part of their heritage as well. So now I come to the third map, and that's when I'm going to talk about our travels. Once again, I've mapped out that bottom part of Israel. Here's that triangle right here. Can you all see the triangle, that point? Okay? This portion that's coming up here is leading to the Dead Sea, just so you get some sort of reference. The Jordan River, where the Israelites crossed, comes north of the Dead Sea, and it's going to the north of the country. And this is showing on this map where the Israelites wandered. And they're starting, and there are, I should preface it by saying that there are different schools of thought of which way they went. This one particular has them coming down to the south here. And then at this point, most of the researchers agree that they come through along the Red Sea here, and then come back up here. They're wandering through, and eventually they're going to come all the way north where the Jordan River is to cross over. This area here, that's where Mount Sinai is located somewhere, nobody knows exactly where, is sometimes referred to as the Sinai Peninsula, in the Torah, the Sinai Wilderness. And in an effort of peace with Egypt after the 67 war, we gave this portion back to Egypt. It is now under Egyptian rule, control, ownership, all of the above. into this area is give me 1 second here. Okay. It's called the Wilderness of Paran. And I circled the area. It's way south over here of Israel. It stretches over into this area. And this is also part of the Israelites' journey. Okay, now that you have those references as background, I had mentioned that Linda and I went into the deep desert, which is true. To get from Jerusalem, which is still up a little bit north of the Dead Sea, down to Eilat, which is the southernmost port of Israel, is about 3 hours. Somewhere 3 to 4 hours. We stayed down in this area for a number of days, and that's what I'm going to talk about in a minute. But why I say in a minute is because Ellen Mirowitz reminded me that, and then I started to remember too, that when I was in Israel for my first time, which was 1970, this was still Israeli owned. And we went down to Sharm el-Sheikh, which was the very bottom point. And when I said that Linda and I were in the deep desert, Ellen said, no. I was in the deep desert. I was down here in this point here. And at that point, you could go down there. And yeah, it is that way. So just as a means of reference to know where you can go today, where you can't. So now I want to tell you about our desert experiences. First of all, it's not like Lawrence of Arabia desert. It's not sand dunes and you just, for miles and miles, you see nothing but sand. Quite the contrary. The Judean mountains cut through that entire portion there, and that's what you see all around. There is sand, there's no question about it, but it's not dunes. It's flat, it's grassy area in parts, weeds, but all around are these gorgeous mountains. Mocha-colored, chocolate, dark browns, reds, earth tones, absolutely stunning to look at. And we wanted to, I should say we, Linda left it totally in my hands to plan all this. So I wanted to have us experience, it's a crater that's in that area called Mitzpah Ramon. Geologically, it's wonderful to look at, and lots of, just if you're into science, and I don't know that much about geology, you can see the different layers of things and what kind of an ecosystem it is. So we wanted to do that. There was a special stargazing tour one night, so you can imagine being in a remote area. The sky was wonderful, and the gentleman who did the tour was from Chicago. He had made Aliyah, and he was quite a character. He used a laser pen to point different things in the sky, and as they were happening, it was a 2-hour adventure. So as stars were rising from one end, he would mention it, we'd track them, and as they were lowering at another end, we would see them go down past the horizon. That was very, very neat. So we were about an hour away from that where we stayed, and then even further south, about another hour, we drove to, it's called Timna National Park. And again, the mountains just take your breath away. And inside of the park are mines where copper where copper was mined in the times of King Solomon. But even prior to that, the Egyptians, the pharaohs, came up from Egypt with their armies and such to be able to mine it as well, and learn from the people who were living there how it was done. We went into those, we didn't go actually into a mine, but we went into the rocky structures or so. Linda was quite the trooper. There were, I'd say, probably a good 30 or 40 stairs on rugged terrain to climb up and then back down. So that was fascinating as well. And it's interesting because the younger generation doesn't know from the Sinai Peninsula except for history. They've never been there. It's never been anything that they can go there if they, whatever the case may be, but they don't. They'll go to a lot, and that's about as far as they go. So to them, when we were in this area of Paran in the south of the Negev, they're all going, oh my God, you guys are really going into the desert. Which it is, it's something there. But again, you have to keep everything in perspective. The last part of this desert experience that I want to share, actually there's a little bit more. Again, just as a reference, here's Jerusalem, here's the Dead Sea. This whole area is considered the desert, the Negev. They call it the Arava. In all of this area, all of it, only 6,000 people live. Out of the entire population of Israel, West Bank, Gaza, everything else, 6,000 people live. In the last 5 years, they've had just one errant rocket that went over there. It was a mistake. Rockets are fired where they're going to be able to get to populations. They don't fire rockets there. I tell you that the people live in absolute peace. Israelis, Jordanians, from here to the end of the sidewalk, we saw the Jordan border. No fence, no signs, nothing posted, don't go this, no. We could go there, they could go here. They have lived that way since the inception of whenever it was, I don't know exactly, 30, 40 years or so it's been that way. You drive down that entire area, and it's called the Peace Road, and you see palm trees. This is the desert. Tomatoes, sunflowers, everything that you can imagine growing, because they bring water in to be able to make it possible. And the place where we stayed, you can stay in a tent if you want. You can stay in air-conditioned comfort. We opted for the air-conditioned comfort. It was this little house that a husband and wife owned and rent out. And the gentleman went to Palm Springs, California, to study how to make houses out of like concrete and adobe mixtures. And he built a series of a few little houses on their property there. I just liked the way it looked, the price was right, so that's why I did it. And the location, because it was central to this Timna Park, to Mitzpah Ramon with the stargazing, and to a town called Sukim, which is an artist colony. And now they've got a cultural arts center that's going up. The Jewish National Fund, which many people associate with trees, because for so many years what they did was plant trees, which you still can do. You can still send trees as gifts, buy trees, whatever it is. Another big operation that they've been doing for a number of years is water, helping to provide water to the area. And the reason that we found out, we had our own little personal tour, the mother of the couple that owned these homes, she is some sort of fundraiser that they tapped into in the United States. And she's been all over making friends with all these people to help bring and raise funds to be able to irrigate the Negev. So it was really neat meeting her. We had breakfast with her. So this was our desert experience. We were there for 3 days. I can tell you, if you're going to want to shop, to go to movies, to whatever else, don't go. That's not what you're going to experience. What you will have, though, is this quiet solitude. There are people, as a matter of fact, just as we have people working in the redwoods and homesteads in the fields there, all the people that are working out there are from Thailand. the same sort of idea. They want to be able to make money to send home. They can make more there than they can in their own country. And it was just a fabulous, fabulous experience. The people are super friendly. To me, a little bit unlike many of the others in the rest of the country that are very aggressive, but that's city life. That's what it's like and such. So I just wanted to share that as far as what our time was in the desert, how much we enjoyed it. The sun rises, the sun sets, absolutely gorgeous. So any questions, anything whatsoever? All right, so with that.
Really, tomatoes?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, you're a tomato grower. So
Oh, yeah.
appreciate it, absolutely.
Did you taste them?